Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari Jaya Paramang Samparibrahiracharya Sattva Smāgati Saraswati Goswami Bhagavati Jaya Kanta Kori Goswami Jaya Ramacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Jaya Name Sata Ho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivacharya Gaur Bhakti Jaya Sri Radha Krishna Bhogavna Sam Kanda Radha Kanda Giri Jaya Vrindavan Dham Ki Jaya Navadvip Dham Ki Jaya Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Guru Bhagavata Ki Jai, Swami Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, all glories to that. All glories to that. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Mother. Thank you once again. Welcome to Hare Krishna Africa platform. We are happy to have you with us today. Like I said earlier, we have few devotees here, but we are very hopeful. Devotees will be joining as we go on the class. So, dear devotees, we welcome you to today's SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM class. We are very fortunate we have our dear senior mother here with us, Mother Radha, who is going to be speaking to us from SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. So, Mother, if you're ready, I'll put the verse on the screen and we can start.
Yes, thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnana-shalakanachakshurumilitam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sachintayan Vaksharam Ekatam Pasi Upashinod Virgaritam Vacho Vipu Sparsheshu Yat Shadashame Kavimsham Nishkinchananam Vipayatanam Vidhu Sachintayan Vivaksharam Ekatam Pasi Upashino dvigaditam vacho vipu. Sparsheshu yat shodasham ekavimsham. Nishkinchananam nripayatanam vidhu. Sachintayan sharam ekadam hasi. Upashino dvigaditam vacho vipu. Sparsheshu yat shodasham ekavimsham. Nishkinchananam nripayatanam vidhu. I don't know if we have any devotees who would like to chant the verse.
Okay, I'll try. Sachintayan dvi aksharam eka adabamsi upashino dvi gaditam vacho vibo spaseshu yat shadasham eka vincham nishkin shananam naripayadana vidu.
Sa, he, Chintayan, while thus thinking, the, two, Aksharam, syllables, Ekada, once upon a time, Ampasi, in the water, Upashunat, heard it nearby, the, twice, Garitam, uttered, Vacha, words, Vibhu, the great, Sparsheshu, in the Sparsha letters, Yat, which, Shodasham, the 16th, Ekavimsham, and the 21st, Nishkinchananam, of the renounced order of life, Nipa, O king, Yat, what is, Tanam, wealth, Viduhu, as it is known. Translation. While thus engaged in thinking in the water, Brahmaji heard twice from nearby 2 syllables joined together. One of the syllables was taken from the 16th and the other from the 21st of the Sparsha alphabets, and both joined to become the wealth of the renounced order of life. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. In Sanskrit language, the consonant alphabets are divided into 2 divisions, namely the Sparsha Varnas and the Talavya Varnas. From Ka to Ma, the letters are known as the Sparsha Varnas, and the 16th of the group is called Ta, where the 21st letter is called Pa. So when they are joined together, the word tapa, or penance, is constructed. This penance is the beauty and wealth of the Brahmanas and the renounced order of life. According to Bhagavat philosophy, every human being is meant simply for this tapa and for no other business, because by penance only can one realize his self, and self-realization, not sense gratification, is the business of human life. This tapa, or penance, was begun from the very beginning of the creation, and it was first adopted by the Supreme Spiritual Master, Lord Brahma. By tapasya only can one get the profit of human life, and not by a polished civilization of animal. The animal does not know anything except sense gratification in the jurisdiction of eat, drink, be merry, and enjoy. But the human being is made to undergo tapasya, or going back home, back to Godhead. When Lord Brahma was perplexed about how to construct the material manifestations in the universe, and went down within the water to find out the means and the source of his lotus feet, he heard the word tapa vibrated twice. Taking the path of tapa is the second birth of the desiring disciple. The word upashanat is very significant. It is similar to upanayana, or bringing the disciple nearer to the spiritual master for the path of tapa. So Brahmaji was thus initiated by Lord Krishna, and this fact is corroborated by Brahmaji himself in his book, the Brahma Samhita. In the Brahma Samhita, Lord Brahma has sung in every verse, Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Thus, Brahma was initiated by the Krishna mantra by Lord Krishna himself, and thus he became a Vaishnava, or a devotee of the Lord, before he was able to construct the huge universe. It is stated in the Brahma Samhita that the Lord Brahma was initiated into the 18-letter Krishna mantra, which is generally accepted by all the devotees of the Lord Krishna. We follow the same principle because we belong to the Brahma Sampradaya, directly in the disciplic chain from Brahma to Narada, from Narada to Vyas, from Vyas to Madhva Muni, from Madhva Muni to Madhavendra Puri, from Madhavendra Puri to Ishvara Puri, from Ishvara Puri to Lord Chaitanya, and gradually to his divine grace, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, our divine master. One who is thus initiated in the disciplic succession is able to achieve the same result or power of creation. Chanting of this holy mantra is the only shelter of the desireless pure devotee of the Lord. Simply by such tapasya or penance, the devotee of the Lord achieves all perfections like Lord Brahma. Om Jnana Timrandasya Jnana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasintuਭ्य एव च पतितानां Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Well, thank you once again, dear devotees, for inviting me into your wonderful Sangha. I'm very blessed to be here. And excuse me, I have a little bit of a cold today, so you have to bear with me. This part of SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM is, I have to say, it's somewhat confusing for me, because it really is quite a deep part of the Bhagavatam. But when I'm thinking about Lord Brahma, I think, first of all, that he is a Mahajan. So he is a role model for us. And when we look at his pastimes, when we look at this part of Bhagavatam, I think it's important to try to discern what is the message, what is the principle that he exemplifies here. So we're learning about devotional service here, and we're learning how to approach our service, right? So Lord Brahma, the context is he has this instruction that he has to create the material world. This is a place for those of us who wanted to enjoy separately from Krishna, we could come here. And so Krishna is saying, Brahma, kindly construct this place for a particular purpose. So it's not just according to his whim that, take the Mahatattva, from the Lord and just manifest whatever you like. No, Krishna has a purpose. And Brahma, is completely unaware, where did I come from? What is going on here? Much less what is the purpose. But as a Mahajan, he exemplifies this message of, okay, well, stop. Don't just rush into and start throwing, material energy around and see what happens, right? Which I have to confess is sometimes the way that I approach my service. I get in the mode of passion and, Guru Maharaj wants, or, some senior devotee wants, and I just start running around, willy-nilly. And no, we're supposed to have a plan, right? I think partly because our movement was started by very young people, and started with a lot of enthusiasm and not a whole lot of resources. We do, at least in North America, we have very entrepreneurial spirit. Let's just take this and see what we can do with it and make it happen, which works. It does, because there's mercy involved, right? But, as we mature, we should understand a little bit deeper. And so here's one of the lessons that Lord Brahma is giving us, that, you stop, you think, you inquire. So he's investigating. He's in the water and he's saying, come in this lotus. Where did this lotus come from? Somewhere there is a source, right? And Krishna from within him gives us this enlightenment. So this is one of our lessons. You know, what is the purpose of my life? What is the purpose of Brahma's, you know, existence here in the material energy? What is the purpose of my life? And how should I begin this process? You know, Prabhupada is telling us, well, the purpose is to help us go back to God, right? That's the goal of life. You know, so we have to see everything through that context. And then austerity, right? So austerity, but not just austerity in general, but austerity that is oriented at the Lord, right? That somehow following the Lord's instructions, pleasing the Lord has to be part of this austerity. If we look at the verses that have come before, you know, we're given this context that the first verse talks about how the soul has to be an illusion to fall under the influence of material nature. That because of this illusion, we start thinking in terms of I and mine, right? And then when we go back to our original consciousness, this glorious constitutional original position, we give up that I and mine. And that we get there through non-deceptive penance. Okay, and I want to focus on that word non-deceptive because we're going to come back to that. And when we do that, you know, Lord Brahma, by his non-deceptive penance, we're told in the fourth verse, by his non-deceptive penance, he was able to get darshan of the Lord, right? And Prabhupada says, we can do the same thing, you know, by the same process. Ramapad Swami said in one class that just by hearing this narration of Lord Brahma's pastimes with faith, we can get the same benediction that Lord Brahma got. So we have to give up that conception of I and mine. And what is the root of that conception? That conception is envy. It comes from envy, that we are envious of Krishna. You know, that's the whole reason why we're in this material world dealing with material energy, because we have envy of Krishna. So by non-deceptive penance, we're going to get out of it. So that's the context for what we're talking about here. And it's important to keep that in mind. Okay. So this verse talks about penance, you know, and growing up in a Judeo-Christian country, you know, culturally Judeo-Christian, whether people actually practice the religion or not. For me, penance means severe physical austerity, right? You know, I have this vision of like the saints whipping themselves or being crucified or thrown to the lions or whatever. This is what penance means. It means to give up everything, maybe even your life, and undergo severe physical austerities for the sake of the Lord. Yes, for the sake of the Lord. But it's a very negative, has very negative connotation. And, you know, that's certainly part of the context of the word, but in Bhakti Yoga, the word has a broader meaning, right? Because what penance means, and Prabhupada talks about this, is devotional service, right? And particularly devotional service through the mantra, because that's the penance that Lord Brahma is being asked to undertake here, right? To meditate on the Supreme Lord. So yes, giving up, you know, material enjoyment, but also this positive, active part of penance, right? So that it's not just renunciation, it's also engaging in something. The Nectar of Devotion talks about devotional service, which is our penance. Devotional service is those activities that are sanctioned by the revealed scriptures, which are done under the direction of the spiritual master. And Prabhupada says that can be Krishna or it can be his representatives, and aimed at satisfying the Lord. Okay, so it's not simply austerity, right? A lot of times as devotees, we like to talk about, you know, doing austerities. My husband talks about when he was a young devotee and he had a competition, like an unspoken competition with another devotee to see who could be up the earliest, right, in the ashram. And so, you know, normally devotees come down from Mangalartika at 4:30. He started coming down at 4, and then the other person started coming down at 3:30, and then he started coming down at 3, you know, and pretty soon they're coming down at like 2:30 in the morning, and neither one of them, is fit to do service throughout the day, because they were competing to be the most austere, right? But that's not where our focus should be when we're talking about penance. Everybody performs austerities. If you live in this material world, you are forced to perform austerities. I used to work for big law firms. The lawyers who work there perform the austerity of working much longer than many of us devotees could ever think about actively working in a day. They'd work 18 hours a day and think nothing of it. Homeless drug addicts, they hustle. They hustle every day. You think like, oh, they just live on the street, it's an easy life. No, because they have to get their drugs every day, and they go through incredible austerities to get those drugs every day. So the key is not whether we're putting ourselves in physical difficulty or we're foregoing something that we wanted. The key really is doing it under proper instruction and doing it for Krishna, aiming to please the Lord. And so that really comes back to our motive, right? So something that could be a penance and austerity for one person might not be for another person, because it really depends on what your spiritual master is asking of you and what your motive is. Srila Prabhupada once said, that he was, I can't remember where he was, some big devotee community where, and it might have been LA, where he was, being honored and had everything comfortable, and people are taking care of him. And he said that honestly, he would prefer to be back at Radha Damodar temple alone, and doing his bhajan. But he said that would be sense gratification, because my spiritual master wants me here, right? So this penance that we're looking for, this devotional service that is going to purify us and allow us to get the benedictions that Lord Brahma received, that penance is really dependent on individual circumstances, right? And so, two corollary points. One is, as at least my mind is really into this compare and contrast thing. Okay, it does it automatically. So I'm always evaluating how I rate next to some other person. It can be something as silly as, is this woman skinnier than I am or not? But oftentimes it's like, how do I compare to other devotees, right? That am I more austere? Well, I cover my head, they don't, right? Or I do this service, they don't, right? So what does that say? I'm special, I'm better than they are, right? More advanced. It says nothing. It says absolutely zero, because my path, the requirements for me to graduate from this material world are individual. Every one of us has an individual plan given to us directly by the Lord, right? Prabhupada tells us in Krishna book, when you come to Krishna consciousness, when you start trying to serve the Lord, he takes personal charge of your karma and arranges it in such a way that you can make advancement. So this whole idea of comparing how advanced I am next to somebody else it's just mine. It's just my false ego getting in the way of my spiritual life one more time, right? I said I had 2 points. I hope I gave you 2 points, because now I can't remember. But we have our individualized plan. And I have to focus on, what does Krishna want me to do? What does my spiritual master want me to do in this situation? Okay. Now, the other really important point that I said we were going to come back to is this idea of non-deceptive penance, right? Non-deceptive austerity, non-deceptive service, right? And that comes back to our motive. And, I think most of us, even if we maybe haven't gotten 100% past this stage, we know we should, okay? And that's the stage of I'm doing one thing, but I'm saying I'm doing another, right? The really overt deceptions. I don't think there's any devotee who would argue that, that's okay. And we may, maybe we are not doing our service 100% correctly, or, there's some discrepancy in our lives, and we're not disclosing that to others. But I think at the bottom line, we all know that's not how we're supposed to do our service, right? Where I get tripped up more, though, is this idea of motive, right? Because we can do, quote unquote, big service with a motive for personal recognition. And I think that's, a lot of us struggle with that because it's natural human tendency for those of us who still are conditioned by the material energy and still have false ego to deal with. And, we could see some of that and some of how Prabhupada was training his disciples in the way he reacted sometimes when people would come and tell him about a service that they did or offer a big donation, and sometimes he would reciprocate with one devotee, telling them how wonderful they are and how much he appreciates it, and really being genuinely grateful and appreciative. And other times someone would come with, almost the same report or the same size of donation, and Prabhupada would act like they were giving him nothing. He would just ignore them, right? Because it's the motive, it's the heart, the love with which this is offered. Did you do this for Prabhupada, or did you do this to make yourself look good? Right? Radha Swami says that desire for recognition is the sand in the offering. Right? You can make the most beautiful plate, of bhoga to offer to the Lord, but if you sprinkle sand all over it, it's not so nice, right? Krishna is merciful. Lord Chaitanya is even more merciful, so they accept our offerings, even when they are imperfect in this way. But that's, at least for me, that's the thing that I struggle with. That always my motive is mixed. I'm trying to learn to serve Krishna, but if I don't get a pat on the back, from somebody, it's a lot harder for me to do my service because I really want that recognition, So this idea that the motive should be pure, and also that it has to be active. Service is meant to be active. So when we think penance, again, as I said, a lot of times, coming from a particular background, we may think of it in terms of renunciation and giving things up, which it involves, but we can't ever forget that active part, and that has to be done with sincerity, right? So one of the things that I struggle with, is this idea of my false ego needing this recognition. Okay. And, the question for me then becomes like, why? Why is my false ego so attached to having people tell me that I did a good job, or that, expressing appreciation for my service, or even just getting credit that, I'm the one who did this. She didn't do it. I did it. It's like, why is that so important to me? And I'm coming to understand that part of my particular spiritual journey that Krishna is requiring of me is to uncover what's going on within my heart. Why am I so attached to this? Right? Well, the easy answer is I'm conditioned by material energy, and that's absolutely true. And many times devotees have told me, just keep chanting, just keep serving. This will go away. And that is also true. I have, progressed from the point, when I was a new devotee and these feelings and things would come up, I had to express them. I go to my spiritual master and say, it's not fair. I did this and this and this, and she took all the credit, blah, blah. He'd say, okay, remember who you're doing this for. Did you do this to please her? Or did you do this to please Krishna? And so I learned not to express those things. And I learned to recognize that this is a fault in me, not in all the other devotees doing their service. But it hasn't yet made the feelings go away. They're still there. And I'm kind of like sitting on my hands and, feeling frustrated inside or whatever, right? And I was speaking with someone once who is not a Vaishnava, the spiritual practitioner, but not a Vaishnava. And she asked me, it's like, okay, so you have these tendencies, this way of looking at things, that you're expecting a certain kind of reciprocation, you're not getting it. What is that doing for you? What is the need that you're trying to meet here? And that kind of opened up a world for me, because it never, had not at that point occurred to me to even think in that way. That, this isn't just an arbitrary thing that's happening to me. There's some way that the material energy is working. Would it be helpful to know more about that? And for a long time, I really resisted looking at that because it seemed unnecessary, But as I get older, I feel like time is shorter. I think I'm becoming more willing to use tools that maybe, I haven't been introduced to by devotees to enhance my spiritual life. Because I don't want to spend lifetimes trying to chant purely and, waiting for that process to alleviate the situation. So if there's something I can do to move this forward, maybe it's worth looking at. And one of the things that came up for me in the process of trying to look for that is the recognition that I feel inferior to everyone, right? And I think this is true for a lot of people in the material world, because the material energy beats us up. That's part of her job, right? We are not meant to be comfortable and happy and peaceful always in the material world, because we're not meant to stay here. Maya is known for pinching, right? Poking, right? Because her job is like, think about what you're doing, think about where you are, and think about if this is where you want to stay, But part of what that process does is it creates trauma in us, whether it's, I grew up with alcoholic parents, my father grew up in the middle of the war, it's like people have their reasons for the trauma. Everybody experiences it in a different way. But one of the things that this trauma does is it gives us a feeling that we're not safe, that we're not good enough, that we're not worthy of being protected or being taken care of, because the material energy is not doing those things for us, right? And so we come to Krishna, and Krishna is taking care of us. Krishna, we are worthy to Krishna. That's not the issue. But the issue is I don't always see that, right? And so when I'm feeling inadequate, I'm feeling unworthy, I'm looking for that. I have a pattern that I developed long before I became a devotee, and probably from past lifetimes, where when I'm feeling that way, I look for external validation, right? And, as a devotee, I've transferred from, looking for external validation from non-devotees, including my parents, right, to looking for validation from devotees. That's a very positive step. That's a very good thing, right? But it can get in my way in devotional service when looking for validation from the devotees becomes more important than actually sincerely doing the service, right? So part of the process of anartha-nivritti can be looking at the things that are going on inside of us and trying to change those things, right? Prabhupada told us, whatever Krishna gives you, use that in Krishna's service, right? So some of these processes of looking at our own internal state and trying to heal some of our traumas, sure, it can be used for material sense gratification. Absolutely, it can. Let me enhance my material life by becoming more peaceful, right? But if I'm using it to enhance my devotional service, then it's spiritual, right? So for me, looking at, why do I react the way that I react? And what can I do differently? How can I improve my relationships with devotees, particularly? Is part of that process of anartha-nivritti. And so this idea of how worthy am I has become like a really big thing in my life recently. Why am I worthy? And I realize one of the misconceptions that I have is this feeling that I am earning mercy, right? That I am, if I do service in a particular way, if I do it enough, if I advance to a particular point, right, that I then will prove that I am worthy of Krishna's mercy, right? And this is dangerously close to this karma mimamsa philosophy, right? That if I do a certain number of austerities or rituals or whatever, I control the material energy and I get what I want. So I don't actually need Krishna, right? And so my approach to devotional service can be dangerously like that, that if I make so many devotees or distribute so many books or, bring in so many Lakshmi points, that I should then be able to say to Krishna, okay, I deserve purity now. Why am I still struggling with these material tendencies? I've proved myself, I've earned it, right? No, there is no amount of service I can do when I get to turn to Krishna and say, okay, now Krishna, you owe me something. Bhakti is causeless. Bhakti is causeless. Krishna gives the mercy when Krishna wills. And I certainly am not going to be ready to receive his mercy until I get over this misconception that I have to earn. I think I've talked before in this group about how when I first came to Krishna consciousness and I would hear this, I'm lower than the straw in the street. I'm a worm in stool. It's just like, I just could not. I didn't want to hear that. It's like it hit me where I felt inadequate. And I thought, why on earth are we, I get enough of that in the material world. People telling me how useless I am. I don't need that here. Right. And yet, there's a very important point there that I don't have to have any qualification. I have no qualification. I am made of my spiritual master's mercy. And isn't that a great relief? Right? Because I don't have to have any mercy. There is no precondition for becoming a Vaishnava. You simply have to want to learn more about Krishna. You simply have to want to learn to have a relationship with Krishna. If you have the desire, then you qualify, right? And a lot of times we think, well, I made it in the door, but now let me become the gatekeeper, right? Only people who are as advanced as I am should be allowed to come in, right? I get this a lot, as a Vaishnava minister, that we have to teach people how to dress. People shouldn't be able to come to the temple unless they dress according to my standards. And everybody's standard is different. It's not like all these women are coming to me and agreeing on the standard of how we should dress at the temple. No, they shouldn't be allowed to wear jeans. They shouldn't be allowed to wear, I forget what you call them. We used to call them Punjabi suits. They shouldn't be. They should only be able to come in if they cover their heads. They should tie their saris only in the way that, it like escalates, right? And I keep thinking, if that had been the rule when I joined, I wouldn't be a devotee, right? But we start thinking this is about qualification and not about mercy. Right? So understanding that this process is based on mercy is helpful to me, first of all, in trying to be compassionate to others, which is extremely important, but also in being compassionate to myself, right? Because this whole thing where I feel judged and I feel less than, and it's easy for me to point the finger at devotees and say, you guys and your judgments are why I feel this way, right? That is 100% not true. Most of you weren't thinking about me at all. The person whose judgment is making me feel inadequate is me, because I have internalized, the message from the material energy. This is not your home. You don't belong here. Get out, which is the message Maya is supposed to be telling me. I have internalized this in a way that I'm using to beat myself up, right? Instead of using to motivate myself to get out. So for me, it's really important to look at these wounded places in my heart and heal them. And one of the interesting things that I found is how this relates to envy, right? One of the things Prabhupada says about envy, aside from the fact that it is the root of all our other problems, is that we can tell if we're making advancement in Krishna consciousness, if we're becoming less envious, right? So this is something that we should be looking at, right? Where do I feel envious? Right? And as I said, there's been some progress in my heart on that, over the years, but not as much progress as I would like to see. And one of the interesting things I noticed is that when I'm feeling envious, it always comes back to I'm feeling inadequate, right? So for me, feeling envious has become a really good tool for realizing that there's something I need to look at in myself. There's something that I need to take care of. I had a situation recently where I was really frustrated with a devotee that I was working, and I really felt like she let me down. I felt so hurt, and betrayed even, right? And so, my first instinct, of course, was to list all of the ways in which she was wrong, right? Not particularly helpful to me. But then my second impulse was, okay, and this is not the first time I've had this experience with someone, right? So obviously this is something you're going through. Krishna's trying to tell you something. You have a pattern in your life. So what is going on? And I realized this wasn't an issue about blame or fault at all. It was an issue about the way I was communicating. I thought I was being perfectly clear. She thought she was being perfectly clear. And we were talking about two different things and never realizing it, right? And when I had that realization, I don't know, it just opened up something for me, that how much of my time do I spend blaming people for situations that don't involve blame at all? That, it's just the material energy can be difficult to work with. Communication is challenging sometimes, and particularly in ISKCON, where we come from different backgrounds and different countries and different cultures, and speak different languages. And how I make things personal that are not personal, right? And so going back to that idea of how is this serving me? Why am I so attached to having these conflicts with people that I'm going to recreate in my life? And realizing that I have such a strong aversion to anybody finding out that I did anything wrong that I can't even look at it. If there's a situation where maybe I'm at fault, I immediately have to change the narrative, right? I'm not at fault. I couldn't have been at fault. It must be somebody else's fault, right? Because I couldn't be at fault because I can't handle that feeling, that emotion, right? And realizing that it doesn't even have to be about fault at all, right? Realizing that if I understand that Krishna loves and accepts me just the way I am, that my spiritual master loves and accepts me just the way I am, that even if I make a mistake, they will love and accept me. That frees me up then to step back from the situation and say, oh, okay, what's really happening here? What could I have done differently? How could I have a different outcome in this situation? How can I look at this from a different point of view, right? And that piece that's my responsibility in there, that first piece that I have to do is to bring it back to, you are Radhadasi, you are loved and accepted. Krishna is taking care of you. Everything will be okay. And you can look at this situation objectively, and there will be no, there are no disasters here, right? But I have to actively do that in order to be able to get the objectivity to, not be in a fight with the devotees, to not let my envy and my frustration and my whatever, create a problem in this relationship. Now, this is all great, Radhadasi, bully for you. Why do we need to hear about all your struggles? Right? Why is this? And I think it's important because I'm not the only devotee who struggles with this. And I think it's also important that we learn to look at our own, anarthas and how to change them, because as I grow in devotional life, as I, stack up the years, what I find is the spiritual teachers, my Shiksha and Diksha gurus, who were very available when I was younger, I could bring every single conflict I had with the devotee to my spiritual master and say, Guru Maharaj, what did I do wrong here? What can I do better here, right? But as I get older, there's the expectation, and it's a very reasonable expectation, that I should not depend on them, for every single moment of my life. And as they get more disciples, their projects get bigger, they get older, and the energy decreases, right? More and more, I'm left on my own to figure these things out. And so I think it's important for me to have tools. I think it's important for all of us to have tools that help us look at, what is going on with me? Why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? And it also helps me because, Krishna reciprocates with me in many ways based on what I'm asking for, right? Krishna is very kind. He does not push me farther than I want to go. And so for me, chanting my rounds, doing my active service, I can float there a long time and not necessarily let go of anarthas. Like Krishna's not going to he's not going to pry them out of my hand. I have to release them, and so I have to become willing to release them. And for me, part of that process is figuring out, why am I doing this in the first place? Why is this situation triggering for me? Why am I attached to behaving in a particular way, or whatever it is? For me, understanding what's going on below the surface is an important tool in letting go of anarthas. And it's a tool that gives me some independence from, and independence is not the right word, allows me to be more self-reliant maybe in my spiritual life, because my spiritual master, he's made it very clear for many years that he is not going to, direct every decision I need to make in my life. But I don't think, even if he had tried, I don't think it's something that he could do, right? As a mother, I know that I can't do that for my 2 children, right? So how on earth, and I started when they were infants, how on earth could, a person coming into a relationship with me as an adult, how could they, direct my life in that way and then do it for all their other disciples? So part of that maturity is understanding that I have to be responsible for this part of my spiritual development. The other point that I wanted to make about penance and doing devotional service is this idea of balance, right? I gave the example of my husband and his friend, each one trying to get up earlier and earlier. That idea that, austerity is desirable in and of itself. And we're reminded, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, don't sleep too much, don't sleep too little, don't eat too much, don't eat too little. It's about balance. And one of the things that I've experienced in my life, and I see other devotees also experience, is what my husband calls the bhakti yo-yo phenomenon, right? So we're going along in our spiritual lives, we become maybe complacent and feel ourselves slipping back. So we double down on the austerities, right? I'm going to go to Mangalarti every morning, chant all my rounds, before Mangalarti, whatever your austerity is. Maybe your austerity is, I'm only going to eat fruits and drink milk, or, just all kinds of things. And we get back on track and feeling really, really spiritual, right? And then it's too much to maintain, and we just do this cycle, right? So it's much better to find a level of penance, a level of austerity, a level whatever, that you can be steady in, right? And I'm not saying don't chant 16 rounds, don't follow for it. That's not what I'm saying, right? There's a minimum, but we set up our lives in such a way that it's sustainable, right? That's really important. So I think another point that I forgot to make earlier that I should make is this. The goal of our lives is to have this relationship with Krishna. That's what we're all doing here. That's the whole purpose of this bhakti yoga, right? And when I am masking my own feelings, masking my own anarthas, I'm being inauthentic, right? And you can't have an intimate relationship with somebody if you're not being authentic, right? So this endeavor to understand more about myself and what's going on with me and why I do the things I do, is part of this effort to become authentic, to be able to bring my heart to Krishna and say, I have this envy. I have this fear that I'm not good enough. You know, I have this need to outdo other devotees, to feel like I've earned my place. Will you please take that away? Right? Because as long as I'm pretending that I don't have it, as long as I'm unwilling to look at my own internal motivations, Krishna's not going to take it away. I guess that's part of what I was trying to say before, that Krishna's not going to take this away, you know, until I'm ready to ask him to do it. And in order to do that, I have to know what it is, right? So part of intimacy is learning to know Krishna, right? We can't love somebody we don't know. But part of this intimacy with Krishna is also knowing ourselves, right? That I can't love Krishna if I can't be my authentic self either. And that's really difficult and painful sometimes, because sometimes my authentic self in this moment, the temporary material identity that I'm, you know, identifying with, that I want to ask Krishna to take away, part of that is a selfish, stubborn person, right? And you know, I don't want to cop to that. I don't want to admit that, right? But admitting that is like the first step in being relieved of it, right? So that authenticity, that understanding ourselves is important so that we can be intimate with Krishna, right? So, you know, I guess what I'm saying is don't be attached, Radhadasi, don't be attached to that false identity that isn't really you, but that you become attached to because the material energy is so strong. Right, so I guess I just want to conclude by talking about Kaliya, because I think Kaliya exemplifies this struggle that I'm going through. I really identify Kaliya. Kaliya is a demon, but Kaliya has the Bhakti Lata Beach. Kaliya has had the association of his wives who are worshippers of Vishnu, right? So Kaliya is filled with envy, but at some level, he's also a devotee. So what we see is this really intimate, beautiful relationship he has with Krishna, right? Because many of the demons, Krishna shows up and he's just like off with their heads, you know, just kills them, right? Which is also a benediction, but it's a different kind of benediction. Kaliya gets the greater benediction because Krishna engages in this very intimate pastime with him, right? He's dancing on Kaliya's heads. Right? He could have just killed him, but he's dancing with Kali, you know, and Prabhupada describes in Krishna book how when Lakshmi massages Vishnu's feet, you know, they're soft, they're like lotuses, you know, even just the massage will bruise his delicate feet, right? But when he's dancing on Kaliya's heads, it's like thunderbolts. Right? And why is Krishna doing that? Well, as he's doing it, Kaliya is vomiting up all this poison. Krishna is kicking him till all the envy is taken away, right? And at a certain point, you know, I'm nearly on the point of death, Kaliya surrenders. You know, I'm sorry, I was wrong. His wives are praying for him. The devotees are praying for him. Please forgive me. Please forgive me, right? And it's really important for me to remember that, because when I'm being kicked by the material energy, when my feelings, particularly when my feelings are hurt, but also just generally when things don't go my way, right? It's very easy for me to slip into this, why me, right? Why are the devotees picking me? You know, Krishna, why am I always the one who has to be in this situation? Why can't things just go smoothly? I'm just trying to serve you. Why me? Poor me, right? And the one thing that Kaliya never does, you know, in spite of his envy, this is my lake, this is, you know, I'm in charge. How dare this Krishna child come in here and tell me what to do? But he never gets into this, like, I'm a victim. He's trying to exercise his power. He thinks he's stronger than Krishna, but he's not in this, for me, I'm a victim thing. And I think that's like one of the deadliest destroyers of spiritual life, right? Because it takes away my ability to let go of the anartha. You know, it's like when I realize I have an anartha that I can release. I have some agency. I can do something positive. I can pray to the Lord. I can ask for help. I can ask the devotees for help. Right. But when I'm in this victim thing, that I'm waiting for everybody else to change. Right. So, so when the material energy is beating me up, I'm trying to understand, okay, Krishna, you're getting rid of the poison. You're getting rid of the envy. You're getting rid of the need I have to be in control. So many things that Krishna is taking away, that this is mercy. And I'll be honest, when I'm in emotional pain, that's not the way I'm thinking, right? When I'm in emotional pain, when I'm in the crux of it, I'm crying and whatever, I'm feeling poor me. Everybody's picking on me. But when I get through that and I can calm down a little, then I can start thinking, okay, what is Krishna trying to tell me here? Nothing that is happening to me is without a larger purpose, right? So that's what I have to share today. Thank you all so much for bearing with me and listening. So I'm waiting for questions and comments, please.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mother Radha, for speaking. Salika Prabhu, are you there? Anyone with question, comment, realizations?
Yes, Prabhuji, I'm here. I'm very confident and sure that you are there. So that's why I keep note. So I know you're taking over.
No. Mother Radha, like I said, thank you for speaking. You said so many beautiful, wonderful things, and I'm not sure whether it was deliberate, but there are a couple of things you said that are like windows to asking some deep questions. One of such is you had mentioned that some of the struggles some of us experience in our devotional life is looking for validation. And I would want you to shed a little bit more light on that, because as a junior devotee working and serving under a senior advanced devotee, you would want to hear from such a senior or advanced devotee give you his validation of what you're doing, what you're saying, and how you're doing things. But the other side to such a validation also may be that you just want people to see what you're doing just for your own aggrandizement. So it has different connotations. So if you may shed a bit more light on what you meant by some devotees looking for validation from other devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. That's an excellent question. One thing I love about this Sangha is you guys have the best questions and comments. Yeah, and that's a really important point that, we are instructed to please the devotees and the spiritual master. That's part of our goal. So getting that feedback is important, right? We do want to please them. And I think for everybody, it's a little different, that what might be for me, a mixed motive the same behavior might in somebody else be totally different because it's a very internal thing. I also want to point out that we are human beings, we are social creatures, and there's just an innate human need to feel accepted in the group. So validation also serves that purpose. And it's not that if we want validation, there's something wrong with us. right? And I think one of the things that we can do for each other as devotees is to give validation, and appreciate each other. That's very important. But where like my need for validation becomes toxic is maybe I'm turning down a service that my spiritual master would actually want me to do because it's not public enough. I'm not going to get enough recognition. Or more likely in my case, I'm doing my service in such a way that I'm kind of like, hey, everybody notice me over here. You guys see me? See what I'm doing over here? Instead of focusing on, what is the best and most efficient way to do this service. And I can't always put my finger on it exactly, but when I'm doing service with somebody who is free from this anartha, I really feel the difference. I wish I could be more like them, that they're just like really focused on, the service and not on who's doing what or who's getting credit. And I think that's one of the reasons why this self-reflection is so important too, because it isn't a cut and dried thing that in every circumstance I can behave the same way and it's still going to be, my motives are still going to be pure. It's like I always have to be looking, at least for me, I always have to be looking at my motive, because that need for not validation, but recognition, distinction, honor, that thing, that sneaks in.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I think I'm really pleased with the answer, because I also think in the same paradigm that, well, we don't have to serve in such a way that we're always wanting to attract attention upon ourselves, like showing off to people that we are the best in this or that. That is one interesting comment I heard Srila Prabhupada made of one of his disciples. The devotee was saying, Srila Prabhupada, I'm not good at this, I'm not. Srila Prabhupada said, you are not good at anything or something.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Just do your service. Yeah.
Forget about it. You're not good at anything anyway. So, thank you so much. Any devotee with something to share or ask? I have lots of questions, but I would want devotees, if anyone has something to ask. Otherwise, I have a second question. And my second question may not be directly pertaining to today's class, but I hope you may be able to help us, or particularly myself, who is asking this question. And that is, Srila Prabhupada, who is our founder Acharya, we all practicing spiritual life based on the teachings that Srila Prabhupada has given us. And Srila Prabhupada himself designed ISKCON in such a way that he wanted his disciples to become very much conversant with the teachings. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada established different courses in ISKCON, like Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhava, different courses. And we see in ISKCON today that there is so much emphasis on these courses. Have you taken this course? Have you taken that course? Have you taken this course? And oftentimes, devotees take these courses and they become recognized that they've taken these courses. Meanwhile, some take these courses only to become puffed up, become so proud that they've taken this course, they've taken that course. And we may not see the practicality of taking those courses in their lives. And Lord Chaitanya glorified Haridas Thakur because he was saying that Haridas Thakur knows the scriptures, he can preach, he can speak, but he can also live it. But I am seeing, I might be seeing wrong, but at the moment, I am seeing that there is more emphasis on studying these courses, less emphasis on character. Now, I find this to be a very serious problem. And I do not know if you have something to say on this or in this regard, because it looks like we are putting so much emphasis on one aspect of devotional service, which is theory, speaking Bhagavatam, speaking Chaitanya Charitamrita, speaking the scriptures, quoting, learning Sanskrit, but there is less emphasis on character, on behavior.
Mhm.
And it's kind of concerning to me. If you may want to shed some light on this concern.
This reminds me of a time when I was in college and I was taking a music theory class. And I was not a music major. I never learned to play the piano. There were a few of us like this in class. And so the professor spent one day, one session, going over the theory of how to play the piano, right? You know, you have this octave and you make these chords and, you know, this is how they're assembled. And at the end of the lecture, he says, okay, now you all know how to play the piano, right? Which, you know, in one sense was true. We understood the theory of how piano music is constructed, right? But no, we did not know how to play the piano, you know, and so I think it's a similar thing, that it's important information that you're going to use in your actual application of spiritual life, but it's not the same thing as the application. And I think it's understandable in an institution where you're trying to standardize and regularize things. You know, a degree is something very tangible that either you have or you don't. And we can all look at it, we can all measure it, we can all understand it. If you apply for a job, what's one of the first things they ask you for? What degrees do you have? Right? Because they can't judge your character based on your resume, you know, half-hour interview or whatever it is. Right? So they're looking at all these markers. And as an institution, we do things the same way. And the way our gurus are approved right now is like you have to meet certain qualifications, but if you meet those external qualifications, if you can get 10 people to say that you should be a guru and no one has any major objection, you're going to become a guru. Why is, you know, like, who came up with that? Well, that's a result of the fact that no one can look inside your heart. You know, that's what really tell us if you're qualified to be a guru or not, but who's qualified to look inside your heart, right? So we just, you know, we have these external things. I notice the same thing you notice. You know, people take these degrees and some of them, it's like you wonder if they even understood what they learned. And some of them, you know, it's a wonderful addition to a, you know, great spiritual practice. At the same time, within a community, there are always people, you know, who maybe don't speak, don't have degrees yet, but we all know, you know, we all take advice from them. We all, you know, want to hear from them. We want their association because they're advanced. And I think that's part of that's just the tension between an institution, which is Ganyas, and Bhakti Yoga, which really operates, I don't know, there's a part of it that just you can't capture within an institution.
Well,
I think
thank
maybe
you.
the most important thing is for me to remember that. Malati Prabhu told me this once. She said, "You're good at public speaking. Don't mistake that for spiritual advancement." You know, it's a very important instruction.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, Mother Malati is such a special soul.
She's
She-
amazing.
She,
She's amazing.
she's
Yeah,
a blessing. She's a blessing to ISKCON.
she
So,
is.
but Mother, you were also talking about, of course, not just you. I've heard from so many devotees, and myself, I also say the same thing sometimes. Other times, I rebut the same thing I say. And that is, you were saying that because one cannot truly love someone he doesn't know, you know. So what do we really mean when we say because we do not know Krishna, we cannot truly love him. Now I can say that I know you because I'm seeing you, not the first, second, third, fourth. I've seen you a couple times. So wherever I meet you, I can recognize as, hey, this is Mother Radha. So that is one knowledge, but that does not also mean that I know so much about you. So there are great devotees in our line who loved Krishna so much, but they didn't know Krishna either. One example is Sudama. Sudama loved Krishna with all his heart, but he didn't know that this, my friend, is the supreme personality of Godhead, yet he loved him. Even Mirabai loved Krishna so much, but she just loved him. So when we say you cannot love Krishna because you do not know him, or when we say that you cannot give what you do not have, you do not have Krishna, therefore you cannot give Krishna. We say that, and I say this sometimes, but at the same time, like I was saying, I rebut this same statement in the sense that I do not have $500,000. At the moment, I don't have it. But if I am a banker and you came to me and you are approved of such a loan, I will be able to give it to you, even though I do not have it. And so I would like you to shed some light on these statements that we oftentimes as devotees make in spiritual life, that you cannot love whom you do not know, you cannot give what you do not have. What do we really mean?
So I have a few thoughts. First of all, when devotees, intimate associates of Krishna, don't know that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that's Yogamaya. They know, they've just put that knowledge aside so that they can be, have a different kind of relationship with him. That's not the same as us not knowing Krishna. And bhakti is causeless, right? So, there are always going to be circumstances where, a devotee's relationship with Krishna isn't totally explicable looking at it from the outside. But generally speaking, at least we have to know something about Krishna. And for most of us, it's not that knowing all these facts about Krishna, makes us love him. But knowing a lot of facts about Krishna is a way of engaging our minds in devotional service, which purifies our minds, which helps us to love Krishna. And that goes back to that question about these degrees too. Maybe it may be a mistake to equate getting a degree with a certain level of spiritual advancement, but at the same time, getting a degree is, a wonderful meditation and, an excellent use of your time and energy in devotional service. So, anyway, then your second point was, we can't give what we don't have. Yeah. No, we can't, right? But we are connected to the parampara. Prabhupada said, repeat what you've learned, right? And so that's why it's so important when we are speaking, that we are speaking what we have learned and not our own speculation. Right? I say that as a reminder to myself because I have a very speculative mind.
Me too, mother.
Yeah. Sometimes I speculate things that sound really cool, and I think I've learned a great spiritual realization. A few years later, I realized that I was mistaken once again. But that's Lord Chaitanya's mercy. I'm not qualified to even be in a temple, a Krishna temple, what to speak of sharing Krishna consciousness with others. Lord Nityananda makes it possible.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. Well, thank you so much, Mother. I've asked you several questions, and I must say I'm very grateful for the answers. Thank you so much. And I hope you recover from the similar cold you have sooner
Sure.
than later. Yeah.
Yeah.
The weather is really cold. It's very cold here.
Is it? Yeah.
Yes, it's very cold. I think
Yes.
let's see, 30 degrees. But I think the wind chill makes it much colder.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Shri Govinda Prabhu, please give me on mute. Okay, you're already on mute. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Mata, please accept my
Hare
respectful
Krishna.
obeisances.
Accept my
All glories to you, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
wish to Srila Prabhupada.
Mata, I had a question yesterday, but I did not get a chance to ask the speaker. And the question was that he was speaking about being pure in the heart. The one who is pure in the heart can see Krishna. And of course, that is our philosophy, that purity is a force. So once the heart becomes pure, then Krishna revealed himself. And not only in our scripture, but other scriptures also speak the same thing. One has to be pure in the heart to see God. Now, we are not pure yet. Some of us are not pure yet. But you also have Acha Vigraha. And Acha Vigraha, from scriptures, they said that they are not different from Krishna. And that is why the more reason why we offer them boga, we offer incense and flowers and dress them and do all that. It's a proof that Krishna himself is whom we are seeing. So what is this, the meaning of being pure in the heart to see God? The Acha Vigraha form we are seeing, is it not the same Krishna we are seeing? Or how do you differentiate that? You see God and to see Acha Vigraha. What is the difference?
Yeah, well, I know when I see Archa Vigraha, I am not seeing the same thing that Malati Prabhu is seeing, or that Radhanath Swami is seeing, or Janani Vas Prabhu, or so many disciples, great devotees. I'm not seeing the same thing they're seeing. I talk to pujaris, and the way they describe their service, I can tell they understand that the deity is Krishna in a way that I don't. So it really, the purity of heart is essential. Krishna is so kind, that he appears as the Archa Vigraha form, but that doesn't mean that, just the physical seeing is the total extent of that experience, right? Krishna will talk to devotees in his Archa Vigraha form. He will dance for devotees in his Archa Vigraha form, but I don't see that. I don't experience that. Yeah.
Govinda Prabhu, are you okay with the answer?
Yeah. I'm getting the answer, but it's still bound to the same question here. That the pujari may be pure enough. You mentioned great devotees' names like Srila Radha Maharaj and others. They may not see the Acha Vigraha, they see beyond that. But what about the neophyte, seeing the deities and offering food to the deities and order? Who are we offering the food to?
We're offering the food to Krishna, and he's there, but that doesn't mean I see the full extent of what I will see when I am pure. It's, like a little child sees their mother you know, and their mother's just their mother, right? That's my mom. I know my mom. I know all about her, right? And the mother has this whole, you know, existence outside of the home, maybe, or the father, whoever, right? And the child is completely unaware of this. You know, my granddaughter is like mystified by the fact that her parents have names other than mama and dada, right? It's fascinating to her because she didn't know that. You know, so she keeps calling them by their names. um, you know, so it's like we see this little part of Krishna, right? Maybe I, you know, when I came to Krishna consciousness, I had this vague conception of God because I knew God existed and I knew he was someone I was having a relationship with, you know, but that's all I knew, this little tiny little bit that I was experiencing, you know, and then by the practice of devotional service, I can experience more, I can understand more. And it's the same when we worship the deities, that yes, we're seeing Radha and Krishna right there in front of us, but the realization, you know, the deeper experience, think of the word see as just beyond what happens with your eyes. Like when you see the answer, when you have the aha moment, you're seeing, but it's not talking about just with your eyes. It's talking about something beyond. Same thing with Krishna.
All right. Thank you, Mate. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for the answer. And Govinda Prabhu, thank you for the question. I think the answer you gave is quite satisfactory because I was also thinking that when Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, who is said to appear once in Lord Brahma's day, which is very rare, was walking at the surface of the earth. So many people saw him, but they didn't understand him. So in one sense, many people can say, have you seen Krishna before? Yes, I saw him. But did they really understand who he is? I doubt. I once went on Sankirtan book distribution, and one Rastafarian called me, hey, Hare Krishna, come here. I was very little. I went there, and he was a thick, tall guy. Says, what do you guys teach? So we teach about God. So he asked me, have you seen God before? I said, yes. And I said, in fact, I offered God some water to drink at the temple before I came here. He thought I was crazy. He just walked away. He said, this guy is crazy. So he just walked away. So that is my 2 cents. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srimad Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna. My obeisance.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
One.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to the Assembly devotees. Well, the question from Govinda Prabhu has been a discussion on this platform, and I wanted to make a contribution. So it is an opportunity. We have heard that the Asha Vigraha is a mercy incarnation of the Lord for neophytes and, for neophytes to see him. Not just neophytes, but those who cannot see God. We cannot see God with our ordinary eyes, so the Lord manifested in the material things available. So that scene is considered to be for neophytes, for canistas. Now the understanding is that the pure devotee sees God everywhere. The first step of God realization is Brahma realization. Be able to see God everywhere. But sometimes our devotees do not even have this understanding of Brahma realization, which is supposed to be lower than, serving God in its form. But that level of God realization is needed. Actually, that is the beginning of higher consciousness. So pure devotees, they see God everywhere, not just in the deities. The deities are there for neophytes. Actually, pure devotees don't need the deities to worship Krishna. The deities are to help neophytes. Even the scripture says like this. The deities have to help neophytes. Canistas. So we should not think that by worshiping and serving the deities, so we are also, yes, like pure devotees. No, that is a mercy incarnation of God for us. Just one last point. We have to understand what it means to see God. We have to understand what it means to say Brahman. When sometimes they say, what is the meaning of Brahmana? One who knows Brahman. But it would be erroneous to think that Brahma just means God, spirit, something like that. Brahman is everywhere. Anything related to Krishna is Brahman. Everything. Your chanting bag, the prasadam, devotees, everything. I think I mentioned this here once, maybe not here, maybe in another class. There was a Muslim guy. He was actually an imam. He was visiting the temple and listening to morning classes, Bhagavatam classes every day. He would ask philosophical questions, but he never questioned about the deities. So one day, we just finished the Bhagavatam class, and devotees just arrived from another temple, from another city. So devotees, we all came out and we offer obeisances to one another. And this Muslim guy was washing. Immediately after that, greetings, he said, please, I would like to see you. He wanted to see me. So he came to my office and he said, today, Krishna has answered a question I have refused to ask all along. I've been saying that if he is God that is on that altar, he should reveal himself to me in a way without me asking. And he said, today I got my answer. And I said, how? He said, I just saw you people offering obeisances to one another, to those people who just came. You all bow down to each other. So I can see that you are not just worshiping idols, but you can see God in everything. He said, that is the philosophy of Islam. La ilaha illallah. So now I can understand that without me, he said, God just answered me because I've been saying that if Jagannath, we were worshiping Jagannath, if these deities are actually God, they should reveal themselves to me without me asking. He said, today I got my answer. So we can see that those who have proper understanding, they don't think that, just the deities is where you can see God. That is like, how do you say? That is like, the word is escaping me. It's like offering, it's like a concession offered to those who cannot see beyond. So we should not mix these things together, thinking that once we are seeing the deities, then we are actually already seeing God. Scripture says Canista sees God only in the temple. Does not mean that it's advanced because he sees Krishna in the deities. Because he sees Krishna only in the temple. And when he goes out of the temple, he does not see Krishna. He starts acting otherwise. If he's at home, he acts otherwise. He doesn't see Krishna. He only acts devotionally, very submissively, prayerfully when he's in the temple in front of the deity. That is Kanista. So I hope we understand this. Just my little contribution. Hare Krishna.
I guess, yeah, it's a really important point that Krishna is everywhere, not just in the temple, not just in the deity. And even in our relationships with each other, putting Krishna in the center is so important. At the same time, Prabhupada gave us this process of deity worship. Prabhupada himself established this process in ISKCON and personally, installed so many deities. It's a really important part of our Gaudiya Vaishnava process. It looks like Hari Chakra Prabhu has a question. Possibly not.
Sorry, Mother, I stepped away briefly. But Srimad Prabhu, thank you so much for what you shared. I really appreciate it. Of course, it's just like an additional thing to what Mother Radha was saying. I think one other important thing you said was that even though deity worship, the Acha Vigraha, is for neophytes, nevertheless, even when one becomes Paramhamsa, he still worships the Acha Vigraha. We read from the Shastras how many great of our acharyas would travel wherever with their deities. And they never left them uncared for, because to them, there was no difference between that Acha Vigraha and the Supreme Lord himself. For us as neophytes, we sometimes make a lot of mistakes, and the Lord, because of our neophyteness, forgives us. So thank you for sharing that. Arichakra Prabhu, please you may unmute. Arichakra Prabhu? Okay, good.
Take someone now.
Okay, you're slightly busy, okay. So like I was saying, sometimes we may be proud, or we may become proud, saying or thinking that deity worship is for neophytes. Now I'm advanced, so I don't need deity worship. Pastor Prabhupada said, no, right? Whether it's just like Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. If you're neophyte, you need to chant that. If you become advanced, you need to chant that. So it is the means and the goal at the same time. So my thinking is that as neophyte as we may be, we should try to see that there is actually no difference between Krishna, the unseen being with the naked eyes, is not different from the seen Vigraha form. Because the Supreme Lord knows that we cannot see him with our mundane eyes. And like Vara Prabhu was saying, out of his unimaginable mercy, he has made himself available to us in the Acha Vigraha form. Now, if Krishna himself is before us in his personal form, what we do with him is what matters most. And so what we do with the Acha Vigraha form of the Lord is what matters most. And I believe that if we try to relate with the Acha Vigraha of the Supreme Lord as non-different of the Lord, we would see that the Acha Vigraha is actually Krishna, because there will be a relationship, there will be a very sweet interaction. Well, Mother Radha, this is your class. You may take it over, please.
Oh, thank you very much. That was a
Hare Krishna.
wonderful explanation.
Yeah, I have a question here, Mother Radha.
Okay.
Mother Radha, please, how can we see Krishna in his deity form and also outside his deity form? What consciousness should we develop in order to see Krishna everywhere and always?
We will see Krishna everywhere and always when that's all we really want. I mean, Krishna's there. That's a fact. When I was a young devotee, very new, I was still not even sure that I wanted to practice bhakti yoga. I went to the temple in Los Angeles, New Dwarka, and I was sitting in the class listening, and the deity doors were open, and all of a sudden I just felt the presence of Dwarkadish. I felt his eyes on me. I felt that he was looking at me. I have never felt more terrified in my life. I had to leave the temple. I was so scared because I could feel this presence. And so Krishna very kindly did not repeat that experience, like that. It was too much. I wasn't ready for it. And it was special mercy because it convinced me that, yes, there is something here. Yes, you should take up this practice, but I am still not ready, like to serve the deity fully 100% believing that Krishna is present, having, I don't know, that just seems so intimidating, so I still have mixed motives, right? I still have this desire for whatever I desire besides Krishna. In order to see Krishna everywhere, we have to want to see Krishna everywhere. We have to want nothing but Krishna. And Prabhupada gave us the process for that. Chant your rounds, worship deities, serve your spiritual master, serve the devotees. Just keep doing that. I think in some sense, I think this cultivating a consciousness can be artificial, right? You do the things that you need to do to get the anarthas out of the way, the consciousness comes. If we don't get rid of those anarthas, the consciousness isn't going to come and we're just fooling ourselves, right? So whatever desires I have, other than serving the devotees, other than serving Krishna, I have to get rid of them. That takes time. And so I have to stick with the process. I have to stick with the process that Prabhupada gave us. And it's going to come. I don't have to worry about directly developing a particular kind of consciousness.
Yeah, thank you, Mother. Yeah, I asked the question because we know Krishna is everywhere. The whole material world is also an extension of Krishna's energy. So it's Krishna. And you see varieties of moving and non-moving things. They are also Krishna. Anything that grows, anything that has life, that life is also Krishna. You see different people with different race, different colors, but within is the same Krishna. But most often we do forget that it's Krishna that is making himself available, presenting himself for us to see, respect, and worship. And because of the forgetfulness, we intend, instead of respecting, rather we disrespect or disregard or rebuke, walk over, and commit offenses, and therefore we are covered not to see those articles as Krishna. And so that's why I'm asking, how do we develop the consciousness practically so that not only in the temple, but even outside there, That's a real test. Because when you are in a temple, it's very easy to remember Krishna. When you are seeing the devotees, it's very, very easy to respect the devotees and, birds with the same feathers, they fly together. But outside there is a real test where you don't see the paraphernalia that will remind you of Krishna. How do we have the same consciousness as the consciousness we had when we were in the temple?
Well, one thing is, do we see other living beings as Krishna's sons and daughters? Like, as long as we're seeing other people or other entities, living entities, separate from ourselves and separate from Krishna, we're not going to see Krishna. So that's the beginning. Is how am I treating the devotees? How am I treating the non-devotees that I am associating with? They're all Krishna's servants, right? And I always have these like two thoughts that come in my head, and then I start talking about one and the other one just flies away. So I've forgotten what my second was.
Well, Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Mother.
Hare Krishna.
See, Mother, this concept of seeing Krishna everywhere, which we all know undoubtedly that is the truth. But at the same time, it can be very dangerous. If we begin to see Krishna everywhere, and at the same time minimize or ignore the Achavigraha form. Because as per my understanding now, and this is a question I have for you, Mother Radha, the Brahman realization, like Shrimad Acharya Prabhu said earlier, is a realization of Krishna, but it's inferior. It's inferior to Bhagavan. Because there are many people who are on the level of Brahmani realization, and they do not recognize or accept the form of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So as much as it is important that we see Krishna everywhere and in everything, I think it's also very important that we recognize that seeing Krishna everywhere is an aspect of Krishna. It's not the totality of Krishna. Just as we say Purusha and Adi Purusha. Krishna is Adi Purusha, is the source, is the first, supreme. And so I don't know if you have something to add to this that I'm thinking, and I might be wrong. If I'm wrong, you correct me. That if we concentrate so much, or if we put so much emphasis on seeing God everywhere, not just in the altar, not just in the temple room, which is a fact, and somehow ignore the Achavigraha, that if we just concentrate on Achavigraha, I'm a neophyte, that might also be very disastrous.
Yeah. Krishna consciousness is frequently about both and not either or. And what I mean by that is, Krishna has many aspects. You don't choose between them. It's like, don't pick one and ignore the other. But for me, I think when I'm in doubt, the standard to test my thinking or test my conclusion is, what did Prabhupada tell us to do? He told us to worship the deities. He personally trained pujaris. And Prabhupada had such an intimate relationship with his own personal deities and with, deities and temples around the world. This was not simply a concession that he gave us because we were neophytes. He was, he was modeling for us. You
Mm.
you have a relationship with Krishna, an intimate relationship with Krishna through these deities, because that's what he did.
Yeah.
And I get nervous anytime we start talking about, neophytes are like this, but when you advance, maybe it's different. Because that's not what Prabhupada said.
Yeah.
Prabhupada didn't say, you get to a certain point and then you can stop chanting your rounds, or you can stop
Yeah.
worshiping the deity, or it's like and just stick to the process that Prabhupada gave us.
Oh man, I love this so much. Thank you so much, Mother. Shrimara Prabhu is back. Please, you may unmute.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Thank you for giving
Hare
me
Krishna Prabhu.
another opportunity. What we're saying is in the Gita, chapter 6, text 30, Yomam Pasyati Sarvata. Krishna himself says that one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor she ever lost to me. This is Krishna's statement, right? Now, Brahma realization is inside Bhagavan realization. They are not, it's not that one is different from the other. But when we try to jump, because Srila Prabhupada has given us the highest process, and we immediately think that we are up there, then we miss the point in many places. You cannot have Bhagavan realization without being Brahman realized. It is included. We have seen many Brahman realized devotees who became Bhagavan realized afterwards. So it is not the other way around, that you have to become Bhagavan realized before you begin to know that Krishna is everywhere. So it is the beginning. It's like arithmetic is included in mathematics, and it is in calculus. Mathematics is in calculus. So it's not that one is different from the other, but it's advanced stage. Of course, Bhagavan realization is the highest. There's no doubt. But then if you don't, Lord Chaitanya was embracing trees. When he sees anything darkish, he just embraces that. He's seeing Krishna everywhere. When it goes out there, it's running into the sea. He wants to enter into the sea. He's seeing Krishna everywhere. And also he worshipped Jagannath all the time. He was worshiping the Jagannath deities, but he's still seeing Krishna everywhere. So we have to understand that we are not saying anything different, but we're trying to make us understand that just thinking that seeing the deities is what it means to see God, that is not correct. Beginning realization of God is to be able to recognize the divinity everywhere. And if I can just say one last thing in response to what Govinda Prabhu asked, how do we develop that consciousness of being able to see Krishna everywhere? Krishna himself gave us this in chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 10 of Bhagavad Gita. He said, I am the taste in the water, I am the heat in the light, in the fire, I am the light of the sun. I am among the movable things, I'm the Himalayas, etc., etc. So this is how we begin to understand, through the universal form. And then last point is that when we see how the animists, those who see God in nature, how much they manifest their devotion in seeing God in nature, I think that can also help us understand. If we don't have that understanding already, it can also help us to understand how to see God everywhere. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Shivavaracharya. Arichakra Prabhu, Mother Radha, do you have something to say in regards to what Prabhuji just said?
No.
Oh, okay. Arichakra Prabhu, are you back to speak? See, Mother Radha, what Vara Prabhu just said, Shimvara Prabhu just said, my Gurudev, His Holiness Bhakti Swami Maharaj, used to say that, I don't know, but I'm sure there are lots of devotees on this platform who know about soccer. So, or like any sports, everybody practices in their own different fields to feature in a very, very, like we had the Super Bowl. And before we had the Super Bowl, people were playing, practicing, but the whole anticipation is to feature in the Super Bowl, something like that. So, yes, we are involved in this Acharya Vigraha form, which Prabhupada gave to us. And the anticipation is that someday to come, we will be able to render this service in a broader scale to the Supreme Lord. Because what we're doing here to the Acharya Vigraha form is very limited, but like Prabhuji was saying, from this limitation comes the broader aspect of rendering service to Krishna. But I also want to suggest that there are others who relate with the Acharya Vigraha form, not because they started from the Brahman to get to the Bhagavati, but the other way around. Because Lord Chaitanya, seeing Kadamba tree and embracing Kadamba tree as Krishna, is a reminder of Krishna because he knows Krishna. So I think that is also there. So depending on the individual person having the rest with Krishna, may be that he is in an ascending form or is in a descending form. But whether ascending or descending, the essence is to have love of Krishna.
And for most of us worshiping the deities, for me anyway, I'm not having any kind of Brahman or Bhagavan realization. I'm striving to make some advancement here. And those things may come simultaneously. They may come in a particular order, or whatever, because we're talking about bhakti. It's not exactly the same as mathematics.
Yeah. Because typically speaking, those who are on the Brahmanic realization, they don't even preach, because they see everything like Om Purnamada Purnamidam. Everything is okay, but here we are, we say that not everything is okay. So like Mother Radha, you say, we are not so much concerned about even developing the Brahmanic realization is bhakti. Because with the bhakti, then everything will fall into place.
Everything comes.
Yes.
Comes. So I just have to worry about following directions.
Yeah. I think we may bring this to a close. It seems Arichakra Prabhu vamoosed. So, hey, Mother Radha, we can't thank you enough for being here with us, even though you're not 100% sound in physical health. Like we said, we pray. We pray that the Supreme Lord helps you recover sooner and quicker, so you can do what is needful in rendering some service, good service to the Lord and his devotees. Actually, what you just did, it reminds me of something I read from Srila Prabhupada a few hours ago. Srila Prabhupada was saying that it's actually more important to serve the devotees than to serve Krishna. So you came here to render service to the devotees, and I believe that with such service, Krishna will be very pleased with you for sacrificing to render service to his devotees. Thank you so much. And with that, we say, devotees, please, you may all unmute, and we chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra to express our appreciation to our revered speaker, Her Grace, Mother Radha Devi. Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare Ram, Ram Ram,
Hare
Hare Hare.
Manchakalpatariyasya,
Ananta Kuti Bhaja Vinde Ki Jai.
Yeah.
Praise Mother Radha Devi Dasi Ki.
Yay! Hare Krishna.
Thank
Hare
you for
Krishna.
your association.